Hi guys, my name is Nathalie Cahill and I'm a pre-doctoral intern at LSU Student Health Center's Mental Health Service.
Hi, I'm Kourtney, and I'm also a pre-doctoral intern at LSU Student Health Center's Mental Health Services.
We would like to welcome you to the Relationship Seminar webinar series. Within this series, we're going to discuss some practical skills for managing and handling interpersonal relationships. When talking about relationships, whether that be romantic relationships, maybe friendships or relationships with our families, we often find ourselves dividing both our energy and our time for those relationships. We can also find ourselves at times feeling as though maybe we're not spending as much energy or our time appropriately as much as we would want to. Our lives may sometimes become too busy, or maybe our moods are impacting how we're feeling and how much energy we want to give to certain relationships, or maybe how much we want to engage with people, or maybe there's some uncontrollable circumstances going on in our lives that keeps us from being able to spend time with others. This can lead to us feeling like we're maybe inadequate, as well as make us question how our behavior or lack thereof could be impacting others in our relationships. We can consider ourselves as a bad friend or maybe a bad partner, or maybe not having done enough. We can also then receive negative feedback from those that we care about, friends or family, about our contribution to our relationships, which can then feed into our feelings and have maybe feelings of guilt or frustration as a result. This can in turn then diminish how much effort we want to put, or maybe the time we spend towards those relationships. In a time where we have been forced to shift our priorities and the time that we are able to spend with those we really care about, it's important to remind ourselves what it means to find a balance for both ourselves and our relationships. It's important to remind ourselves of those things and how we can also maintain healthy boundaries within our relationships. Today, we hope to help you better define what those boundaries can look like and some things that would be things to keep in mind when considering what's helpful for you. Of course, in addition to this webinar series, we encourage you to seek out any national resources like using us as the mental health services, or even our wellness and health promotion services that are also offered within the Student Health Center. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Kourtney and let her talk to you guys about some self-maintenance tricks you guys can partake in.
So concerning self-maintenance, one thing we first have to recognize is the need to take care of ourselves. Making time or decisions for ourselves can leave us feeling selfish, or like Nathalie indicated earlier, that we're not a good friend, partner, roommate, or child. However, we must remind ourselves that we are but one tool within our relationships that also needs maintenance from time to time. A lack of maintenance can lead us to becoming angry more easily, feeling tired, or becoming frustrated with ourselves and those around us. Although we would like to blame those experiences on others, we have to also remember that allowing for self-maintenance is our own responsibility. It is something we must task ourselves with and make time for, just as we would do so with our relationships. So what are some self-care and self-maintenance activities that you can practice? As recommended by psychologytoday.com's guide on 7 types of self-care activities to cope with stress, here are some examples to tap into those different types of self-care activities. They can be sensory activities. I know one I personally enjoy is kind of going outside in the backyard. They can be pleasure activities, such as maybe watching a movie. They can include mental activities, such as maybe organizing a space in your home. They can be spiritual, such as meditation or prayer, emotional activities, such as practicing self-compassion, or physical activities, such as going for a walk. Next, Nathalie is going to define some boundaries.
Those are all really great examples, Kourtney. So let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to define our boundaries in our relationships. The term boundaries can seem very sterile or threatening. It can also be seen as a way to push others away, or by a means by which we can create a blockade between ourselves and others. It sometimes uses a means by which we can keep others literally or figuratively out of ourselves, away from ourselves, or away from others. However, when we talk about boundaries, we're talking about defining what's comfortable, what's healthy for us. So these are necessary things. These are good things for us. This helps us define what's comfortable or necessary for our relationships and for us to feel good. So let's begin by discussing positivepsychology.com's guide on how we can initially start such healthy boundaries. So one, Defining. So we want to identify our desired boundary. We must first examine what boundaries already exist and what are the things we think may be missing. So considering what you think would be most helpful for you. What are the things that you feel like are missing? 2, communicate. Say what you need. This is very big and very important. So when communicating, keeping the focus on yourself rather than others. So we want to be about me and don't place blame on others. So for example, you want to say, I need some time to myself after school, rather than saying you have to stop bothering me when I come home. 3, be simple. You don't need to over-explain. There's no need to feel like you must provide some kind of extensive reasoning for the boundaries you are setting, but be clear and communicate openly about what is your goal and what are your needs and those things that you find will be helpful. Number 4, set consequences. As negative as that sounds, we have to say why things are important to us, as the focus should be on you. There shouldn't be any misinterpretation of the boundaries you're trying to set. So noting why it's important and what you need is very healthy and very important. So relationships are also about being open and clear. So we want to set everything for everyone else to understand. So let's go ahead and move on and let Kourtney talk about why they're so important.
Thanks, Nathalie. So according to positivepsychology.com, healthy boundaries are good for both our emotional and mental health. They create a sense of autonomy and control of our lives and situations, giving us the power to speak up about what it is we need. Healthy boundaries also help us to understand ourselves better, as we direct our attention inward and identify our own needs. They impact the behavior of others, as they will likely adapt to your requests and may also pursue setting boundaries for themselves. They can also diminish the experience of burnout, as we are allowing ourselves to create balance for ourselves and our relationships. So some of the advantages of healthy boundary setting include good mental health, good emotional health, the developed autonomy, developing our identity, the avoidance of burnout, and influencing others' behaviors. Next, Nathalie will kind of provide some examples for us to facilitate these advantages of healthy boundaries.
So let's talk about some examples, guys. So what are some ideas we can come up with in terms of what kind of boundaries you might be setting? So considering times where you might find it difficult, let's discuss. So 1, what about clarifying our work time? So whether you're living with your partner or your family or even living alone, it's best to define the time during which you plan to maybe complete schoolwork, or maybe if you're working from home. This provides clarity and helps provide you with consistency in your schedule and your routine. Consistency also is helpful to those around you, as they know when you're expected to be doing what you're doing. It communicates a consideration for what's important to you, but it also considers your intentions and communicates that to others, and also how you plan to divide your time. It may also be helpful to provide some indication to people around you, maybe during your work time when you plan to take breaks, so that way if they want to spend time with you or ask you questions, they're pretty well aware of kind of what those boundaries look like for you in those work settings. So that way it also helps them feel like they're included and that you're considering them as well. So another example, let's talk about clarifying your space within your home. So related to the first one, in a similar way, so we're talking about in conjunction with your work time, we also want to define the space that we're working within. Having a place that's comfortable or a space that we're in, we want it to be functional, and we want to feel like we can work at our best. So even in times of inconvenience, we need to work to have our needs met, and to communicate to those around us that we share space with about what our needs and what we need to have done. This allows for everyone who's maybe in a shared space to feel like everyone's getting their needs met and everyone can function at their best. Number 3, learning to say no and when something's too much. So being social creatures and sometimes people pleasers, as we all know we are, we often experience a feeling of wanting to satisfy all the needs of everyone else. And this tends to often put us neglecting our own needs. And this often results in maybe becoming tired due to the amount of time we're spending worrying about other people's wants and needs, also becoming very frustrated. Sometimes this could be towards the group or the friend that you've been spending more time with, and more of your attention towards, or maybe even angry or feeling neglected because they're feeling like our own needs aren't being met or considered. So usually instead of looking inward, we often blame those people that are around us and not taking into consideration our own actions. So those we care about often rely on understand their needs, but we have to communicate that to them. So as such, it's healthy to tell them when we feel like we can't or that we don't have time at the moment, but we want to make time for them maybe later on. Number 4, let's talk about being respectful, but also being clear about what's okay and what isn't. So whether it be when we're sharing space with someone or maybe a general interaction, we're often faced with topics or maybe conversations that maybe we're not comfortable with, or maybe that this isn't something we want to discuss with that particular person or that party. In those moments, we should consider the ways we can respectfully decline a conversation while also communicating our thoughts and our feelings. So taking a pause and maybe reflecting their interest in the topic or conversation, practicing I statements. So for example, I would ask that we discuss something else instead. These are all steps that you might find helpful in handling certain situations or examples like we provided with you today. So we want you to consider some ways in which you plan to implement such boundary settings in your own relationships. So let's go forward. And I'm going to have Kourtney talk to you guys about some ways you can learn some more information outside of this webinar today.
Yeah, those were some really good examples, Natalie. So the information that was discussed here today was only a brief overview of the importance of maintaining boundaries. So if you wish to learn more, visit positivepsychology.com and check out their article, How to Set Healthy Boundaries, 10 Examples and PDF Worksheets to read more and to practice your skills. Also check out psychologytoday.com's article, What It Means to Create Boundaries in Relationships, to learn more about the importance of boundary setting. We also invite you to listen to additional Relationship Toolbox webinars and to learn more on the Student Health Center website and social media outlets. Next, Natalie will kind of outline some additional resources and support.
So some information you guys might not be aware of is the way our Student Health Center works in terms of levels of care. So this is a really helpful tool for you guys to review if there's ever a question or maybe thoughts about what services might be really helpful for you given what you might have going on right now. So it talks about things that we would normally do with you guys if you were in person. So there's some resources we would normally hand out, but our website is available all the way through maybe seeking out crisis counseling for mental health, but it gives you kind of an idea on what you think would be helpful and what tools are readily available to you guys. And if you take a look at our next slide, we can talk more about the Student Health Center as a whole and the resources that are available through them. So we have our medical clinic that provides primary care, specialty care. We have a women's clinic for the gynecology clinic. We also have the injection clinic that's available. They do imaging services, all really great resources for you guys to have with your through your student health fee. Also, our mental health services where we are, we have individual counseling, group counseling, other webinars like these. You have our emotional wisdom webinars that are also available on our website you guys can check out. We have a psychiatrist on staff. We have our great eating disorder treatment team that's also available. So lots of cool and interesting resources you guys can have. Also, our wellness and health promotion. So they do offer different coaching resources and activities for you guys. There's classes you guys can attend. And also the Lighthouse program is really great for our students as well. So to finish off, for you guys to stay connected, we have our website, which has these webinars. They have our emotional wisdom webinars. They have ways you can access us in terms of making appointments or resources that are available through our Student Health Center. You can stay in touch with us on there. We also have our Instagram page, our YouTube channel, all kinds of ways you guys can stay informed about what we have going on at the Student Health Center. So I want to say thank you for you guys attending today, and we hope that this was helpful. Kourtney?
Yes, I also want to say thank you for joining us today, and I will see you guys in the next Relationship Toolbox webinar. Bye.
Bye.